Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Charge from the Geek podcast. We're your hosts, Joel and Sebastian. And today, February 28th, 2025, we've got a handful of topics on the docket. Kia hosted an EV day. One of the EV startups had their CEO step down, and we've got a couple more topics as well. So without further ado, let's plug in and get started. All right, so let's kick off our show with some new stuff. Kia hosted their annual EV Day this week. So during this event, they unveiled several new electric models for the world market and a handful for the US. So the first car shown that will be coming to the US is the all-new Kia EV4, which will be available in both a sedan and hatchback form. However, in the US, we're only going to get the sedan for now. Womp
Oh,
womp. I think the hatchback looks better.
I'm looking at the hatchback right here. So yes,
compared to the sedan right next to it on the left with
Yes.
the weird rear end. Anyway,
Yep.
The EV4 is a 400 volt eGMP car and is expected to be available with both a 58.3 kilowatt hour battery and a larger 81 kilowatt hour battery. Kia is currently claiming a 10 to 80 time of right around 30 minutes for both battery packs. Kia also showed off a concept for the EV2, which is their smallest EV to date. No word on if this will show up in the US, but it probably won't. The final EV I kind of want to talk about is Kia has given our most in-depth look so far of the new PV5, which is a van that is available in passenger config, cargo config, and there's one that's like in between where it's a 2-row passenger van and then the rest of it's a cargo van. It's like a crew cab van, if you will.
I'm pulling up pictures, I promise.
The vans will use either a 51 kilowatt hour or 71 kilowatt hour NMC pack. However, a smaller LFP option is expected to be available on the cargo configs. Kia claims all packs will be able to charge 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. As to whether or not the van goes on sale in the US, nobody knows. Kia has confirmed that they are going to be selling it in Canada. However, Kia also recently announced, the EV5 will be on sale in Canada, but not here. So who knows? It being sold in Canada doesn't really tell us if they're going to sell it here or not. And with the way tariffs and everything are going, seems maybe unlikely. We'll see.
So EV4, yes, for the US, correct?
EV4 sedan, yes.
Yes, for the US.
Hatchback, no.
Okay, I mean, I can see that. I mean,
EV3, yes.
Yes.
Which will be a hatchback.
I thought EV3 was Canada only.
No, EV5 is Canada
Jesus,
only.
I can't keep track of the numbers, Kia. Come on now. Give me a flow chart. I need a flow chart.
So EV3 is a hatchback. 4 is a sedan in the US.
But there's a hatchback for the 4, right?
There's a hatchback for 4, but we won't get it here. EV5 is a small crossover that we won't get here.
Yep.
And then EV6.
We get EV9, yeah. So
and then EV9.
If you're listening, there'll be a quiz at the end of the podcast here, so be prepared. It's a pass-fail. So yeah, but I heard the news about the sedan, I believe yesterday or early today. I can't remember the week's been a blur. That one I'm excited about because that one looks good. I'd be happy with the sedan. I'm not a hatchback. I know you like your hatchbacks. You do. For me, I guess because I'm old, I guess, and it's hard for me to get in and out of hatchbacks. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. I saw starting price would be 35, so that's promising. So if it stays that way, are they manufacturing it here or over in Korea?
I believe they're manufacturing in Korea.
Okay, gotcha. So they'll just keep the EV6 and I guess EV9, the only ones they manufacture here in the US. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, Kia's kind of reinvented itself, and I've been seeing reports online where people are trading in like BMWs and Mercedes for Kias now for the EVs. So
Which is crazy.
That's just crazy. I mean, but everyone kind of just thought Kia and Hyundai were someone just makes cheap cars and that's it. But they've kind of, with this EVs, have kind of reinvented themselves. Super excited. I would drive, it's the EV4 sedan. Yes. I'm trying to keep it all straight now. I would drive that. So I would drive that in a heartbeat.
For me, the EV4 on the sedan, I just don't like the rear end of it. It's got
Yeah,
like
it's
a
like
weird
someone took a
panel to
sedan
it.
and put the end of the EV6 on it. It's just it's
Yeah,
weird.
it's just a weird look.
It goes and it just goes straight down.
Whereas
so,
the hatchback looks normal to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
But yeah, that's my only reason I'm like, give this. I wish we got the hatchback is
Yep.
just for that rear end.
Kudos, Kia. Keep up the good work. Keep releasing more EVs.
I am legitimately also interested if the van comes to the US.
Yeah.
It seems like a good package, especially because I assume Kia will get it at a price that makes sense.
Yeah. The van, I mean, vans have kind of taken a downward trend, I think, in the last 10 years. I mean, we really have three manufacturers of vans. We have Toyota, Honda, and Kia. Those are the only ones that really make, ICE-powered vans. I mean, I don't know if Chrysler's still making their van or not. I'm not sure. But yeah, so you really don't have a lot of a lot of people have ditched their vans because soccer moms thought it's cooler now to be in a big SUV than it is a van. So, or soccer dads. And I kind of get that. My wife is totally anti-van. She would never get a van. She bought a Telluride before she bought a van, for our EV6. So yeah, I could see it. I just don't know how much. I don't know how much of a market there would be for that.
Well, for me, I wasn't even looking at the passenger van aspect. I was looking at the cargo van aspect.
Gotcha. So cargo van, yes, because we don't have that many. I mean, you only have the E-Transit, you only have the Rivian, and the one from Chevy, which I'm forgetting the name, the Bright Drop. So those are the only three you really have. So yeah.
There's also the E-Sprinter from Mercedes, and I think Ram is doing a ProMaster electric.
We don't talk about Ram. Just move on. So Ram ain't doing nothing. Just move on. They made news this week. We didn't even put the story in here. So yeah.
I sure didn't.
Nope.
I should have, honestly.
It's okay.
Moving on. Lucid's CEO has stepped down. Earlier this week, Lucid CEO Peter Rawlinson stepped down fairly suddenly, claiming, quote, "Now that we have successfully launched the Lucid Gravity, I have decided it is finally the right time for me to step aside from my roles at Lucid." Lucid has placed an interim CEO for now while they work to hire someone to fill Rawlinson's shoes. Lucid expects to produce 20,000 vehicles this year, which is almost double the 10,241 vehicles they delivered in 2024. This is just interesting to me because he was kind of a rare exception in the CEO auto world of he was actually a car person.
He came from Tesla.
And
so
was an engine, like worked on like developing and building cars. And so it was just interesting to see that he has very abruptly stepped down.
Yeah.
To the point of they didn't have anyone lined up to replace him. And it's just a weird thing to happen, especially I think it said he's been CEO for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just thought it was interesting, to see why would he have very suddenly stepped down. The official statement is he feels like it's the right time, but if it feels like the right time, you could wait until there's actually someone lined up to replace you.
Yeah, you could say I'm stepping down in 6 months. Find a replacement.
Yeah, it just seems weird.
It's a little sketch. Is that one of these things where it's one of those things where, Lucid has gotten a big investment from the Saudi, I forget what they call that fund, Saudi investment fund, or whatever it's called. So it's one of those things where, hey, you can either resign or we're going to boot you out. I mean, Lucid's been saying they're going to improve their sales like drastically every year. We really haven't seen it yet. So, I mean, they're making steps, but it's incremental. They do, their problem is that all their cars are basically luxury cars. They don't have there's no cheap Lucid. If there is, it's what, $60,000, $70,000. So there's really no cheap.
Right.
There's no 35K Lucid, which I think if they made one, it would sell great because they have good tech and they have good charging.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little sketchy to me, it kind of just came out of the blue. So I'm curious if there's more. I'm sure there is more to this than what we know. Was this something he wanted to do? Is he getting a better offer from somewhere else, with more stability? So, yeah. We'll see if they survive.
On. Sorry. The dog started hollering outside. Moving on, Volvo has teased the ES90.
Ooh.
So the ES90 is slated to be Volvo's all-new flagship electric sedan and is expected to be fully revealed next week.
Yep.
This week, though, they have teased that they expect this new EV to have 435 miles of range in the WLTP cycle, which is pretty generous. My guess is 360 EPA. Which, I mean, 360 is still a respectable number.
Oh, yeah.
Volvo also says this will be their fastest charging EV ever, delivering 185 miles, again, WLTP, in 10 minutes. This is due to it being Volvo's first 800-volt architecture vehicle. Additionally, this vehicle will be Volvo's first vehicle to release with the new compute stack, which we talked about last week, which will allow the vehicle to do some pretty advanced driver's assistance features, especially over time as they have, can learn and improve the software. This I just thought was cool. Volvo seems to be doing a lot of good stuff right now and a lot of right stuff. And so it was cool to me just to see, Volvo has the S90, the Volvo sedan has always been their flagship vehicle. And so I'll be really interested to see the electric take. And I'm also interested to see, if they once they release the ES90 with this 800-volt pack, how long until we see that trickle into the EX90?
Yep.
Because I would expect it to be a very similar powertrain between the two vehicles. And so if they're going to do this 800-volt pack, are we going to see 2026, 2027 model year EX90 also move to 800-volt? Who knows?
That's true. Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, looking into your crystal ball, what do you think pricing is going to be on this?
Oh, like 80 grand.
That's what I was thinking. I'm thinking top spec, maybe above that. So yeah.
I expect it to be right around where EX90 is.
So do I. That's what I was thinking too. Somewhere between right around 90 grand decked out.
Probably, I'm going to say start, if EX90, I believe, starts at like 80.
Yeah.
This will start at like 76.
Yeah, I'll start a little bit below it because it is a sedan. So it's a sedan, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. I mean, we've driven 2 Volvos. We liked it. I mean, we've heard some rumbles about the tech and some of this safety features. It does ding a lot, which most Chinese vehicles do. When you get them, anytime you look away or gets near the line, ding, 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 ding. But yeah, I mean, we really like the rides of them. We like the software. We like how it was made. So glad Volvo is pushing this out. And hopefully when it comes out, we'll get to drive it.
Yeah. And you mentioned, people can have some complaints about software. I think they were pretty buggy at first, but it does seem Volvo is very actively working to improve and fix things pretty rapidly.
Yep.
Fairly frequently releasing OTA updates for little things and whatnot. Anyway, our last real topic for the week: Tesla has launched FSD in China. So Tesla this week launched a limited version of FSD in China. This system is not as fully featured in the US or as fully featured as the system in the US. Man, I just butchered that completely.
You did. It's like,
but so in China it has some limitations, so it will only function on controlled access highways and urban roads. So in this case, a controlled access highway is one where you have an on-ramp and an off-ramp. And an urban road is like a big street in a city that in China probably has 4 lanes, 5 lanes, whatever, wide area. It's not doing little neighborhood drives or anything like that. However, on the roads that it will function on, it does behave pretty similarly to the US FSD, where you get traffic light it obeys traffic lights. It'll do auto lane changes. It'll do some levels of navigation, etc. However, in China, it's up against some pretty steep competition because many of the Chinese automakers already offer systems that match or beat FSD in the US. And so for Tesla to launch a system that is technically worse than FSD in the US in China, they're launching a system that is a pretty significant amount worse than some of their Chinese competitors.
I believe, I'm looking this up now, but I believe also coming out this week, BYD released that they're going to release their own kind of ADAS system, and it's going to be free. They will not have to pay for it. So I'll bring that up here, and I can show you what it says. But they say the free self-drive, it's going to be free. It's not going to be like Tesla self-driving, but it will be similar to that. I mean, I think it's called God's Eye. I believe that's what they're calling it. Let me bring up this article here so you can see it. Because when I heard the story, I thought about it. I'm working with one screen, so yeah, it's taking me a minute here. So talks about yourself, share screen. So much props for Dominic on the Out of Spec podcast on the Batteries and Club podcast for having to do this. All right, so share. There we go. So yes,
Yeah.
this is what it says. So yeah, so it looks like here, it's announced last week that tech mark somewhat mostly God's Eye will now be fitted as a standard to 21 of the 30 cars split across the brands. Even the 9500 Seagull will have it. So
Interesting.
So yep. So like I said, it's like they're going to get competition over there with it. So that's why I don't think it's going to have the boom like a lot of people think it's going to have, because the one thing that China automakers are good at doing with their EVs is tech, and that's one thing they're good at. It's just the way the car is, and things like that. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how well this competes over there, because I'm sure there's going to be the regulations on it, and we shall see. Evidently, it hasn't helped much because Tesla's stock price is still down a lot this week. So evidently, the investment community has not bought into it like they thought it was going to buy into it.
Yeah, and I've seen some rumblings online from people in China who have used the new FSD, reporting that it's not doing things completely legally. Sometimes on the road, and in China, the land of the camera, they're already getting automated fines and stuff because of things FSD is doing while it drives that you can't do.
Yeah, because China has cameras on every corner, basically, so in every traffic light and everything. Yep.
And so that is an interesting kind of side topic that we won't even get into of, the whole liability thing is like, you are the driver, so you are liable. But if the system says it can drive for you and the system makes a mistake.
If I have FSD turned on my Tesla and it runs a red light, that's on me. It's not on Tesla. So, and that's what people don't understand. You are ultimately the driver of the car. If something happens, you are responsible.
Yep. All right. So Joel, we drove a lot of things on Saturday.
Yes. So warm weather means catch up on our car reviews. So now that the warm weather is finally here in Arkansas, well, at least it is for this week. Who knows next week? Could snow again. But yes, the warm weather is here, and it was somewhat warm that day. We've driven some cars. Let them know what we drove this week, Sebastian.
So we started off the day with our cars and coffee,
which
was an awesome time. Mm-hmm. We had a good turnout, a lot more than I was expecting it to be, because it had ice some that week. It was still chilly that morning, whatever. But we had a great turnout. We met a lot of new people, a lot of old familiar faces as well. It was a great time. Yep. I got to drive 2 cars and coffee thanks to our good friends at Evolve Auto.
Yep. Thank you, Colin.
A 2021 Tesla Model S long range. It was the refresh model, so Palladium, I believe, is what they call the refresh.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and that thing's a rocket. That thing was a lot of fun.
Yes, you got a little pedal happy coming down the interstate, not realizing how fast this car goes.
Even just ignoring the speed of it, it is a comfortable ride. It's a good ride. I have one complaint with that car.
Let me guess. If you get to the Y. Yep. The yoke.
Yeah, the yoke is so stupid. The yoke was fine going down the interstate because you're doing that.
You're driving like an Indy driver. Yep.
I went to back it into a parking space and I start having a hand over hand, except there's nothing for me to hand over hand on.
Yep.
Because there's no top of the dang wheel.
Yep.
And it was stupid. I know the argument is, if you just have FSD, it'll park for you. Yeah, but it didn't have FSD. So I have to drive it and park it. And anyway, it was a great car, except for the yoke. And if I were to ever buy one, it would either just not have the yoke, or it would be retrofitted immediately.
Yep. For a couple $100, you can change out the yoke. You can buy a third-party steering wheel and replace it. So
yeah. Yep. So, Joel, what did you drive to Cars and Coffee?
So, yes. So, first off, huge shout out to Evolve Auto, huge shout out to Guatney Buick GMC, and also huge shout out to Cadillac, because their district manager for Arkansas found out about our Cars and Coffee and brought out his lyric. So, it was really cool because, he was able. That was probably one of the hits of the show before I get into what I was driving, because he was able to talk about the lyric. And a lot of people don't know about the lyric, especially here in Arkansas, because I can probably count on my one hand how many I've seen on the road here, or 2 hands, how many I've seen on the road here. So it was great. Thank you, Cadillac, for coming out with your district manager. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Did some of the business card downstairs, but thank you for coming out. I forget, but I'm not even going to try, but I don't remember. But yeah, so I drove courtesy of Guatney Buick GMC. We actually had it for about 3 days. I got to drive the Hummer, and you got to drive it too, so not just me. The Hummer EV SUV. So that pretty much spoiled us. It's like driving a tank, because are so high up, and your windshield is like the size of my iMac monitor right here looking out. So it's tight, especially if the sun's coming out and you put the visor down, you literally have this much space,
You
literally.
have like a
This
12
much
inches
space.
to look through.
When you're at the
and-
red light, you're like like this. So I mean,
especially because that one didn't have the glass roof. It
did not have the glass roof. It was the
it had the
3X. It was a
opaque-
3X. I think it was a 3X is what we had.
Yeah, which is top
Yep.
trim level, but instead of they didn't have it wasn't optioned for transparent. It was optioned with the opaque, which is like a plastic panel.
But yeah, we put some miles on it. We drove around today Saturday, drove to Conway, which is about a 45-minute drive, drove it back. So we put a couple hundred miles on it. So huge shout out to them for that. But I loved it. I mean, it's so over the top. We had people stop us we were doing a supercharger test on it. So if you're interested about, the Hummer at a supercharger station, we have a video showing us how that worked. Talked a little bit about the difference because the battery size on that is a little bit smaller than the truck, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So all of the SUVs get the 20 module pack, which is 180 kilowatt hours, versus the trucks where you can get the 24 module, which is like 212, 220 kilowatt hours.
Yeah, we plugged in, got decent charge speed. So, I mean, it was at 40%. So it went right up to about 150, 145, 150 kilowatts.
Which is all it'll do on a supercharger currently because superchargers can't do high voltage.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that thing was a tank. The part that was really concerning to me was when we drove it to Conway and back, that was around 70 miles. And the trip computer showed when we got back to North Little Rock 1.1 miles per kilowatt hour.
I will tell you, I got it up to 1.2. So
you got it up to a whopping 1.2.
I mean, it was cold, but it wasn't like horribly cold.
It was like 40 to 50 degrees outside.
I mean, it wasn't like 20 degrees, but and the sun was out, so it wasn't. I mean, the weather wasn't that bad. So, but you're not driving it for efficiency.
No, because 1.2 miles per kilowatt hour is insane.
And when I
put
picked
that
it up,
into reference,
and when I picked it up, it had like I'm not gonna lie out the dealership about it because they're letting us borrow for free. It was basically at 4%. By the time I got it home, because it was cool when I brought it home, it was basically told me I had about 2 or 3 miles left. So I got home around 2:30 p.m. Plugged it in a charge. I was pulling. I don't know how many volts I was probably pulling 8 kilowatts, 8 to 11 kilowatts. I forget what it was. I didn't look at the volts, but to get to 80%, so that was 2:30 on a Friday afternoon. To get to 80% was 9:30 Saturday morning. So we're talking like 15 hours to go from almost zero
on a 48 amp charger.
On a 48 amp charger. It's not it wasn't a 110 on a 48 amp charger, hardwired. Yeah, if we're talking that, and my wife wouldn't know why electric bill was that high last month. I said, well, I charged the I charged the Hummer EV for 2 days, so that's probably what. That was like charging my Tesla like 5 times, probably 6 times.
For me, just the efficiency of the thing when I do sit there and think about it. So we went 70 miles at 1.1 miles per kilowatt hour. So we used an entire Chevy Bolt's battery.
We did
to go 70 miles.
Used an entire Chevy Bolt. So yes.
No. It feels like you're driving a tank. Mm-hmm. Super Cruise did really, really well the whole time I was using it. That car though is a bit of a buggy mess.
It is.
And some of it is because it was in demo mode, which meant it factory reset every single time you turn the car off.
So you connect your
really
Bluetooth,
annoying.
Get in, have to reconnect the Bluetooth again. So it was annoying. Yes.
Or if you're using CarPlay, because it is one of the GM EVs that still has CarPlay.
Yep.
Every time you plug your phone in and get in, you have to go on your phone and tell it it's okay. It's allowed to do CarPlay or whatever because it reset the radio, and so it has a different ID.
Yep.
But there's just some like little other weird things we ran into while we had it, especially so this feature was really cool to me. The rear swing gate is power.
Yep.
So it's got like a 35-inch mud tire on it, right? So it's heavy as all get out.
Which is probably killing the efficiency as well, too.
But you just press the button underneath the driver's side taillight and it power swings open and power swings closed.
And it's a heavy door. It's not a yes.
But while we had it, there were probably enough times to put on 2 hands that I hit the button and it either didn't open, the light would just flash at me, open part of the way and then just stop, or hit the button to close it and it would start to close and then just stop. Or there was a time when we were at a dealership, and I had just gotten my bag out the back, hit the button, was walking away from it. I watched it close all the way. It got almost to the end. It honked at us 3 times and then opened back up. And then there was nothing in the way. It wasn't like anything was hanging out and it got stuck. It just was.
It reminds me similar to how the doors on the Tesla Model X work. Like sometimes you'll just put it down and it's just, I don't know if it's the way the light's hitting it or if it's scented someone, it just stops or doesn't open all the way. It kind of reminded me of that. So I don't know. I don't know if it was buggy. I don't know if it's just ultra sensitive when someone's around so they don't hit them or crush them in there. I don't know if you have to push the button and run like 30 feet back and then, I don't know how that works, but overall it was just.
Yeah. The one other bugginess we had with it was while we were at Cars and Coffee, we parked it and put it in extract mode because it looks so cool to have it jacked all the way up in the sky. And then it didn't want to let us take it out of extract mode.
Yeah, we had to, I forget, what did we do?
So we had to turn the truck off. We turned it back on. We put it in normal drive mode.
Yes.
Put it back in terrain mode. Hit the button to extract again so that it would think it was in extract mode, and then it would let us lower it because basically it was in extract, but the screen started for some reason showing it was in normal suspension mode. And so then whenever you tried to do anything on it, if you tried to lower it back to normal because it wasn't in normal, it would just come up and tell you vehicle leveling unavailable.
And people were asking, why didn't you just drive around like that? We can only go 15 miles per hour when it's in extract mode.
Yeah, it won't let you go more than like 12 miles an hour in extract mode.
So we're not going down the interstate at 12 miles an hour. Yeah, so luckily we were able to fix it. So.
I was a little worried I was going to have to bust out my keychain, my 10mm keychain, and disconnect the 12-volt battery on it, but we didn't. We got it sorted out, and it was fine after that. The other thing that was really cool, but it was disconcerting the first couple times you did it, the rear wheel steer on that thing.
Yes.
Is intense.
It feels like, because when I originally, when I pulled out of Cars and Coffee to take it out, because I had to follow you back to drop off the Tesla Evolved, I was like, did I slide on some ice? Because it feels like it feels like you're fishtailing is what it feels like. And I was like, there's no ice back there. It's 40 degrees. All the ice is melted. And then doing something else, I was like, Sebastian, it feels like this car's fishtailing. And I couldn't figure out why. Then it made me realize the crab walk feature, the rear drive, those wheels turn. So it makes it feel like you're doing it real fast, which makes it great to get in like tight parking spots. Like we could pull in the parking spots with ease with that thing because of the rear wheel turn. So yeah, it's a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling inside the car with that. And that's something we really didn't notice when we reviewed the truck because, we didn't have the truck that long. We were just kind of driving in straight lines and not doing turn around and park lots and things like that.
Right. But no, I mean, other than those little couple of things that we were like, what the heck is happening? It was a hoot and a half to drive.
Yep. So Hummer.
It's expensive. Yeah. But it was a hoot and a half.
It's $110,000. So yeah. so Hummer, Model S. So those are the 2 cars we got from dealers. Then what did we actually get to review this week?
Yeah. So after Cars and Coffee, we took the Hummer to the bustling metropolis of Conway, Arkansas.
Yes.
And got to drive 2 vehicles courtesy of Chris Crane Hyundai and Genesis of Conway.
Yep.
We drove first another vehicle that was a hoot and a half.
It was fun.
The 2025 Ioniq 5N.
Yes.
I have never seen Joel smile as much as Joel was smiling the whole time we were running around in that.
Yes, there's just so much things in that car that it doesn't need to have, but it's just so cool to drive. Like, oh, I'm shifting with the throttle. I mean, it was just, shifting with the paddles. I mean, it was just so cool to do that because we've never done that before. We never got to drive, the Hyundai, the GT line, the Hyundai doesn't have that, and it was just really cool to drive. And the noises that it makes, it sounds like your muffler's popping in the back, and it was just fun to drive. So yeah,
I mean, it's an EV that is a performance EV, and you can just drive it like an EV where you just have it in normal, just like any other EV where you just put your foot to the gas, it chunks you into the back of your seat and launches. Or you can hit a button on the steering wheel, and then now you have paddle shifters, and it does like revs and rev matching, and you can have it set up to do like 3 different sound profiles, and one of them sounds like an Elantra N, I believe, the sporty Elantra, where it'll rev, and if you back off the revs real fast, it pops and burbles and is a hoot, and it has a speaker on the outside of the car, so it'll pop and burble outside of the car. Like, it was just so much. That was fun.
Yeah.
Like you could drive it like a normal car, and day-to-day driving, I don't think would have been too bad in
No,
that thing.
I mean, you lose some range and you lose some. I mean, it's a tad bit rougher, and you do lose some range because it's the bigger tires and it's a performance model. But everyday driver would be fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the suspension was better than the EV6 GT.
Mm-hmm.
The seats were better than EV6 GT. They were not near as aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
EV6 GT was one, like, after I drove it for a while, it was fine, but you first get in, it hugs you, that's super tight, and you're like, ugh.
The plastic's kind of hard, it gets to you after a while. Yeah.
The Ioniq 5 was still bolstered, and it was still heavy, like, you felt like you were planted, but it wasn't near as hard, or at least not for people of my body type.
Yep.
And then, yeah, like, the suspension felt good, a little worse than normal Ioniq 5, but better than EV6 GT.
Yeah.
EV6 GT, when we drove it, you could feel every single crack in the pavement and everything. Like, this one was not near to that level. And yeah, and then you can either just punch it and use the boost button and just EV launch it, or you drive it like it's a manual sports car, and it's still a lot of fun. And it has so many like other little track features that we didn't get to play with, obviously, because we didn't have it at a track. Like drift, I believe it was,
what was it, like an 8-speed? 10 speed?
Yeah.
What was it? 8 speed?
Yeah, 8.
Yeah. Put it in the in the first speed and go about 70 miles an hour, and it goes. It's hilarious. I'm like, it sounds like the engine's about to explode, but it's all fake. I mean, it just has nothing to do with it. It's totally awesome. It was just fun to drive, and that was awesome. So we dropped that off, and then went next door and got the
Genesis electrified GV70.
That's a lot to say.
It is a long name. It's actually the Genesis electrified GV70 Prestige all-wheel drive.
So top of the line, right?
Yep. And it was, going into it, I didn't really know what to expect on it.
Yeah. It's a car that we don't talk a lot about, and it's a car that's just not usually on our radar when we do normal EV discussion. The Genesis line is not. So
yeah, and it's interesting. We'll have our video coming soon on it, but kind of one of the first things we kind of point out was it is not an eGMP car.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same powertrain as eGMP, but it is actually built on the gas cars platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the GV70's case, that helps it in some ways, and there's a couple of ways that it hurts it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I think it hurts is on like interior space.
Yeah.
It'll be in the video, but like you notice the back seat kind of seems small.
And it's raised, and
it's
like
pretty high
up,
right.
Yeah.
Just like some stuff like that. But then like some of the EV stuff, it's the same as the eGMP cars. So it does super well. Yeah. It charges well. It has good powertrain tuning. It does the annoying iPedal thing.
Yep.
But
software similar to the EV9.
Yes. Or it's not CCNC. It's more similar to the Ioniq 5 and EV6 than it is to.
I just thought the look of it made it look more like.
Well, it has the Genesis theme.
Yeah.
But it is not
looked
CCNC.
More like the EV9. Yeah, but it wasn't as bulky in the menus, I thought, though, as the EV9 was.
Yeah,
that
it's
just made
laid out different.
Yeah.
But it's not CCNC, so it doesn't have like the manual preconditioning or anything like that.
But it was luxury. I mean, there was leather everywhere. I mean, everywhere you looked in that car, there was leather. So
yeah, I think both of us ultimately came away from it and we were both like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I get it.
Yep.
I understand why someone would buy this over just like a fully loaded Ioniq 5.
Yeah, and the price on that's all. I forget the price on that. Was it 70?
I don't remember. It was like 70 something. Yeah,
74.9 or something like that. But yeah, I'll be interested once we get to do the electrified GV60.
Yes.
So we saw one of those in the showroom, which looked cool, and those start around. I think the one we saw was 50s, mid 50s.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah.
Which that one is an actual eGMP car.
Yeah, I like that one. If I had to get a luxury, from what I saw, I haven't driven it. That's pretty nice. I
mean, it would be like driving a luxury EV6. So
yeah,
But yeah, so anyway, those were the 4 things we got to drive, and it was a lot of fun. I'm also been super happy this week since it's warmed up. I'm back to getting like 4 miles per kilowatt hour on my commute versus 3.1.
Yep.
I can now get home from work and use less than 10% of my battery, which is amazing because it's like 30 miles of driving.
See, I don't know because I drive more for my job than you do. I got to make, local visits and things like that. So I'm sure my efficiency has increased on my Model Y, but I haven't got a chance to notice it yet.
But yeah,
it's been a crazy
anyway.
week. Yep.
That is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for plugging into the Friday Charge. Be sure to subscribe to the EV Geek podcast on YouTube and tap that notification icon to be notified about new releases. Next week, we release a review of an EV that is
maybe past its prime.
Maybe past its prime.
Mm-hmm.
I won't give any more details
of that.
It's a little long in the tooth, yes. And an awesome interview with a Mustang Mach-E owner who rallies her car and does modifications and customizations, and just really cool to hear her talk about kind of background and how she got into it. And it's, she's actually had 2 Mustang Mach-E's, and it was just a really cool story.
Yep.
So if you guys have any thoughts or questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below, because we would love to hear from you. So long, everyone, and we will see you on the next episode of The Friday Charge.